want to be a speech therapist when I finish school. I heard that you're the speech therapist who works here.
You mean speech-language pathologist, though everyone still thinks of us as being speech therapists, no matter how many times we correct them. Actually, we're also known as speech and language therapists in the UK and speech pathologists in Australia. Funnily enough, for a field dealing with speech and language, we don't have a universal name for our profession. Also, some of us work almost exclusively with swallowing disorders, something that none of these names touch upon. Anyway, why on earth do you want to become a speech-language pathologist?
I want to become a speech therapist, so that I can help patients who stutter or who have a lisp.
That's very noble of you. But let me clarify a few of your impressions. Firstly, we call the people we see clients or students if they attend school. Secondly, although you want to help people who stutter or have a lisp, those clients probably make up less than 5% of the students I see in this job. If you work in a medical setting, you might never see clients with these problems.
Okay, maybe I'll work as a speech therapist in a hospital and help people who've had strokes learn to talk again. Plus, it will be cool working closely with the doctors. They must really respect what speech therapists do, seeing how much improvement patients make with their talking.
Well, if you do work as a speech-language pathologist in a medical setting, most of your time will be spent seeing whether clients with swallowing disorders need to have thickened drinks or pureed and mashed food, or whether they need to be nil by mouth. If anything, the medical team are mostly interested in seeing whether the client can swallow food or drink safely, so that they can be discharged.
But what's that got to do with speech therapy? Doesn't a nurse or a dietitian do that job?
Funny you should say that. When I used to work in a hospital, virtually none of the clients or their families understood why a speech-language pathologist was checking how safely they could swallow food and drink. Even when I explained why a speech-language pathologist was seeing them, they would give me a strange look, or say, "But my speech is fine." Plus, if I recommended that they needed to have thickened drinks, the clients nearly always hated those. They would sometimes say, "But the nurse let me have water."
But surely, people would think that a speech therapist was more qualified to give advice than a nurse. Tell me some more about what you speech therapists do in the school setting? I've heard that you just play games with kids. That must be fun.
To an outsider, it probably looks like we just play games. Sometimes when I take a student from their class, before we even leave the room, they say, "Have you got that game we did last time?" That is, if they've got enough language, or if they can even communicate verbally. Though I spent most of my time assessing students with delayed language development, learning difficulties, autism, or cognitive delays, and writing up their assessment reports, because I don't get a lot of time to see the 60 kids on my books for therapy.
60 kids. Wow, you must fix them all so quickly. Autism and learning difficulties. Isn't that a special ed teacher's job? Reports? Do you mean like a teacher's end of semester report card?
Not quite. I do reports throughout the year. Normally, I have at least 3 to write each week, and they're all at least 6 pages long. Sometimes the reports are more than 10 pages. I also spend a good deal of time writing individual education plans, or IEPs, for students, with their intervention goals. Plus, we rarely fix anyone, as you say. You don't just grow out of a learning difficulty, or autism. Sometimes kids improve, but we can't always take the credit for that, as some of them would have improved anyway, by themselves.
Wow, it sounds like you spend a lot of time doing paperwork. Do you actually ever do any therapy, even though, as you say, it doesn't always work?
Well, occasionally I get to do some therapy. Though most of that is done by an SLP assistant, who works under my supervision. Though I rarely get time to actually see what they are doing.
Oh, so that's why you're not called a speech therapist, because you don't really do much therapy.
No, it's because we also assess and diagnose, as well as treat. And I guess because we have master's degrees.
A master's degree? You must get paid pretty well, then. The pathologist part of your name also sounds very prestigious and medical. Do you cut things up, too? Like an actual pathologist?
We cut up sentences into phrases and words into sounds. We also cut food up into smaller pieces to help clients with swallowing. But we don't actually cut up body parts. As for the salary, I get paid slightly less than a teacher with the same amount of experience. We don't cut things up. But a lot of trees are cut down for the paperwork I complete.
You get a nice office though. This room looks very comfortable and spacious.
Actually, this is not my room. I share a small space under the stairwell with the janitor. Though I have to be out of the room on Tuesdays, when the occupational therapist comes in. When she's here, I either work in the hallway or see students in the staff room.
I think I'll stick with being a speech therapist in a medical setting, then.
We actually get paid about the same, if not slightly less, than a nurse in the hospital setting.
Oh. Well, that doesn't matter, because I'm gonna open my own private practice and charge my patients over $100 an hour.
Before you do that, I think you should know that the client group of children who need our help most are those from a low socioeconomic background, who have limited or no ability to pay that amount. If you see adults privately, the majority of them will be retired or not working due to disability, and will also have a limited capacity to pay.
Oh. Maybe I'll become a physiotherapist instead.